Hello students, teachers, parents, history nerds, hello everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today we are going to continue our United States history series by looking at Reconstruction. Don't forget that there's a link for a fill-in-the-blank worksheet in the description. I just ask that you like and subscribe. I apologize for any mispronunciations ahead of time. I do my best. Okay, let's go. Reconstruction was like trying to fix a broken vase with a bunch of mismatched glue sticks, all while arguing over which glue to use. After the Civil War, the federal government was stuck in a tug-of-war between those who wanted the South to get a quick welcome-back hug and those who insisted on a strict, you better prove you're sorry handshake first. Lincoln, ever the peacemaker, suggested a simple pinky promise from 10% of voters in each state. But Congress, led by the radical Republicans, shot that down faster than you can say Wade Davis bill, which they passed to demand a proper apology and full rights for former slaves. Lincoln quietly stuffed that bill in his pocket, hoping no one would notice. Then Lincoln got assassinated, and Andrew Johnson took the wheel. Johnson was all about that quick hug approach, but with a twist. He wasn't keen on African Americans having a say in things. The South, now back in the driver's seat, gleefully introduced black codes, which were basically rules to keep African Americans from doing much of anything. Congress wasn't having it, though, and decided to go full parental lock mode by passing the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment. Things got so tense that Congress tried to give Johnson the boot through impeachment. They fell short by just one vote, leaving Johnson clinging to his job like a cat on a curtain. Finally, in 1869, they passed the 15th Amendment, telling the states, no more excuses. You can't deny people the right to vote based on race or color, period. And thus, the chaotic era of Reconstruction continued, proving that rebuilding a nation was messier than cleaning up after a frat party. Reconstruction in the South was like throwing a wild party where everyone suddenly had a say in the playlist. African American men, now voters, were the new DJs, spinning tracks that brought the Republican Party into the mix. Along came the scalawags, local white guys who finally got their shot at politics after being overshadowed by their rich neighbors, and carpetbaggers, northerners who packed up and headed south for a fresh start and maybe a little adventure. Northern women, too, found the Reconstruction South to be a land of opportunity, especially when it came to setting up the new public school system. Of course, Southerners weren't quite ready for the full remix. Segregation was still the hit single, while integration was more of a B-side that only the most radical white Republicans dug. Still, a tax-supported public school system was a big win. Meanwhile, the South's economy was like a game of Monopoly gone wrong. Land was everything, but even the biggest landowners were broke. So they came up with creative ways to keep the game going. Sharecropping was the equivalent of playing with a friend's game pieces and splitting the winnings. Share tenancy let you pick your own piece and strategy, but you still had to give up some of the profits. Tenant farming was the most independent move, paying rent in cash and making all your own decisions. As African Americans made strides, some white Southerners lost their cool and formed groups like the Ku Klux Klan, basically the party crashers of Reconstruction, causing chaos wherever they went. Racial violence spiked, especially after the 15th Amendment made sure everyone could vote. Congress eventually stepped in, playing bouncer with the Enforcement Acts of 1870 and 1871, making it a federal crime to mess with someone's right to vote. And so the party raged on, full of ups, downs, and more drama than a reality TV show. By the early 1870s, the South was like a worn-out house guest that everyone was too tired to keep feeding. So the government started packing up the troops and sending them home. And in 1872, they pulled the plug on the Freedmen's Bureau, leaving the South to fend for itself. The death of a key radical Republican in 1874 was like the final nail in the coffin, signaling that the passionate reformers of the past were pretty much done. Without them, the North's old racial prejudices crept back in like weeds in an untended garden. Meanwhile, Southern Democrats, known as Redeemers, were plotting their comeback like a group of high school students planning to take back the prom committee. Their strategy? Unity. Get all the white folks on the same page to grab power in Congress again. And it worked. In the 1876 election, the Democratic candidate snagged 51% of the popular vote. But when the Republicans demanded a recount, they found enough mistakes to hand the win to Rutherford B. Hayes by one measly electoral vote. In the Compromise of 1877, the Republicans agreed to pull the remaining troops out of the South and throw in some cash for railroads and ports, officially putting an end to Reconstruction. Sure, Reconstruction didn't quite hit all its high notes, but it did open some doors for African Americans, like voting rights and education. Schools sprouted up all over, and African Americans began to learn to read and write. But just as quickly, white Southerners, not thrilled with these changes, started trying to turn back the clock. The Ku Klux Klan and other groups used fear and violence to chip away at the gains African Americans had made. Even when Congress tried to step in with the Civil Rights Act of 1875, the Supreme Court gave states the green light to set their own rules, leading to more restrictions on African Americans' rights. Yet, in the face of all this, African Americans refused to stay down. They built their own communities, started newspapers like Ida B. Wells' Free Speech, and founded schools and organizations to fight for their freedom. Booker T. Washington suggested playing it cool and building up economic strength, while W.E.B. Du Bois pushed for nothing less than full and immediate equality. And thus, the battle for civil rights continued, setting the stage for future generations. Okay, to recap. Reconstruction was like trying to host a chaotic party where everyone argued over the music. Lincoln wanted a quick reconciliation, but Congress demanded a stricter approach, leading to a battle of wills. After Lincoln's assassination, Johnson tried to rush the South back into the Union, but his leniency toward racial issues caused tensions to flare. Despite attempts to secure African American rights through amendments and acts, white Southerners resisted, leading to the rise of violent groups like the Ku Klux Klan. By the 1870s, with reformers gone and Northern interest waning, the South's old power structure started creeping back in. The Compromise of 1877 ended Reconstruction, leaving a mixed legacy, some progress for African Americans, but also a resurgence of white dominance. Despite setbacks, African Americans fought on, building communities and demanding equality, setting the stage for the ongoing civil rights movement. There you have it, folks. That is Reconstruction nutshelled. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. Was Reconstruction a success or failure? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Now, go nuts on those like and subscribe buttons for me. See y'all next time on Nutshelled History.